Hello and welcome to SI Tutorials. My name is Anthony Williams and I will be your host. This video is part of a two-part series on the functionality of Adobe Connect. This one's going to focus on the home page, essentially, where you go in to do all of your non-actual room stuff. I will make another video that will cover the functionality of the room itself. So the first thing we want to look at here, we're on the home page. Okay, this is pretty much the home page here. You should always make sure that My Meetings is selected. You can get right to your meetings by pressing any of these buttons here. It will take you right to the meeting room. There are not a whole lot of things you can do from this particular page. You can create a new meeting and you can create new content from here. There's also a content option on your menu. This is essentially where you have all of your content stored, so you can create new folders. You can of course delete them. Creating new content is just a matter of going into one of them. You click new content, choose your file, name your file. Now when you name your file, when you call it up into the room, it's going to have that title by default. It's going to title itself with whatever you have named it. You can always change that in the room as well, and I'll show you that in the next video. Summary stuff and custom URL really aren't necessary, but once you've chosen your file and named it, you just click save, and it'll take a couple seconds and it will save in your content. The most useful tool on your menu bar is your meetings. Your meetings is going to allow you to do a lot of stuff. For one thing, you can create a new meeting. You can also do that from the home page, but let's take a look here. Essentially, you will name your meeting. You will give it a custom URL. I would name it something that you can easily remember what it is. This is really useful for creating your recording room. So for example, mine, I just use, well, you could do something like that. I just use my normal room name, which is A. Williams 479, and then an underscore. Oops, that didn't work. Try that again. A. Williams 479 underscore and then recordings, and that's what I've named my recording room. That's probably the easiest way to do it, honestly, because it doesn't need to be really long, but you need to recognize what it is when you look at the URL, and you want your learners to be able to recognize which one's the recording room as well. Summary again is not really necessary. The start time, the duration, the select template, the language is default English. You can leave all those alone. As far as access goes, you want to make sure anyone who has the URL for the meeting can enter the room. Otherwise, they won't be able to get in there. They'll need to register or be basically set up in your, well, I'll show you in a moment where you can actually set other permissions for people. Under your audio conference settings, you want to make sure that you include this audio conference with this meeting if you are going to use voice. Recording rooms don't need it, so you can basically check this first option here. It doesn't really matter if you have VoIP with that or not. It's simply because you won't have dial-in information in the recording room anyway, so they won't really know how to access it even if it's available. So either one will work, but I don't include any audio conferencing with my recording room. Conference numbers, this third option is really not used. You should already have a profile set up. I will actually show you your audio profiles here in a moment. And then when you're done, you can just click finish. You don't have to go through all these other steps. Managing audio profiles. Okay, you should only have one listed. You should just have one audio profile through PGI. and when you click it, you can actually look through and you can see your client, your let's see here, your participant code is this number here. Your moderator code is the same number with an extra digit. This is your client ID, so if you need to do troubleshooting with PGI, they'll ask you for your client ID. This is where you find this information. And these are your dial-in numbers for the meeting. So in other words, and you can use this meeting too just to talk to people on the phone. You don't have to be in your room in order to access the meeting, the voice meeting. So you can use this instead of giving out your home phone number. You can just use this number if you need to talk one-on-one with a learner. You can use this number and both of you can connect and talk that way. And that's pretty much it for that part of things. Let's cancel this. Okay, so if I click on my meeting, okay, there's a couple things I can do here. For one thing, I can go and I can edit the information, which you will see the same kind of setup that we did for create a meeting room. So if you're first using your room and people aren't able to get in, make sure that you have checked anyone who has a URL from the meeting can enter the room. If you get into your room and your voice is not recording with your meeting recording, make sure that this option is checked or is selected. If you do not have any audio conference with the meeting selected, you won't be able to use voice with your recordings. It won't merge the two together. So you can go in there and you can change some things that way. The other thing is recordings. All of your recordings, as you make them, will be under your recording submenu here. Essentially, one thing that you have to do for all of them is you have to check the box after it's processed. Go up here to access type and make sure that you select public. Set no password, but select public. If it's private, nobody will be able to get into the room. So you got to make it public in order for them to access the room. Once you've done that, if you click on that recording, you will see a URL that you can copy and you can paste it into the links pod in your recording room for access, or you can send it to anyone and they can view that recording. The other very useful tool is your reports tool, which you will need to fill out your roster. I'm not actually allowed to click on this and show you exactly what it looks like, but it's a list of learners with their times in and times out along with the dates, and so it will show you when each person is in your room. Now you can use this with the recording room as well. You can use it with individual recordings. You can use it with the recording room as well. The reason, of course, that I cannot show you is because it would be a FERPA violation, because I would be showing you a list of all the learner names, which is a FERPA violation. So don't ever do that. And then if we go back to meetings and we click on the recording room, we have the same options here. So you can do reports for your recording room as well. You can basically do reports for any of your rooms that you have created. And it's simple. By attendees is really the easiest way to do it. I usually copy the list for that particular meeting or the particular session, and I will paste it into a Word document. That way, what tends to happen is people will come in several times, and so you'll go through it and you'll hit their name again and you'll look for their name in the roster and be like, oh, I already showed that particular person was attending the meeting. So you can actually go through and you can delete the names once you've put them in the roster. You can use it to delete the names when they come in again, which would actually be first because it's an opposite. It basically gives you your first participant listed is going to be the last person who came into your room. So first comes last, etc. But makes it a little easier for the roster, especially when you're doing the recording room, because people tend to come in many times, and you only need to show that they attended one time. So you can delete their names after you've put them in the roster, and that way you won't have to look them up again, as it were. It just saves time. And that's pretty much it. And again, you are able to go in and edit information for your rooms. It's the same page that we were looking for when we created the meeting. And it just will allow you to go in there and change anything if you need to. Reports is not used. Reports, I'm not quite sure how to use it. There is a way to go in there and look at everything. My profile, you can go in and change some things there, but I wouldn't recommend messing around with that. Another thing that I want to show you is if you go into your room and you click Edit Participants. Now this is useful for getting someone in as another host. In other words, you want them to have all the ability to do everything that you can do in the actual meeting room. You can actually add them over here. You just select them over on this side, click Add, it'll add them in. You can remove them as well. And then once you add them in, you can set user role. So you can say participant participant is somebody who is basically going to sit there and listen to a lecture or whatever, they're going to see what's going on, but they don't have any ability to change any of the functionality in the room. A presenter has a little bit more ability they're able to present, but they're not able to change anything, essentially. They're not able to go and mute attendees and things like that, but they can do a presentation. In other words, they have control over the share pod so that they can do things like that. I'm assuming the notes pod and all that good stuff too. Host has full permissions, and then denied is of course going to make a person unable to come in. That particular person will not be able to come into your room at all. And I think that's pretty much it for, can't really think of anything else. Well, one thing, if you wanted to delete something, all you do is check the box and just choose delete. You can actually move things as well. Just keep in mind that when you move them, if there's any URL associated with them, it will no longer work. The other thing is when you're looking at your recordings, you can also move those. You can move those to a folder, but just be aware that once you do that, they will no longer be viewable by anyone but yourself. I learned that the hard way. So it's a good idea to name your sessions according to, I would name them with the quarter and the year, and then the other ones are simply the week. So this 1-2 is week 1 part 2. 2-1 would be week 2 part 1. 2-2 would be week 2 part 2. You just figure you may be doing 3 1-hour sessions a week, which is up to you. You get 3 hours a week essentially that you're given the time to do your sessions, so you can split that up however you wish. So you might have a third part too, but I would recommend naming all of your sessions when you go to record them. Name them so that you are able to remember exactly what they are, and this way you can keep them all in your recording list even when you move to a different quarter, because they will all be named according to the quarter and the year, so you won't lose track of everything like that. And that's pretty much it for this part of it. Make sure you check out part 2, which I will go into the meeting room itself, and I will show you the functionality there. And so thank you for watching.